Across the world, Vietnam is renowned for various things: pho, egg coffee, Halong Bay, having Robin Williams shout morning welcome, and obviously, the Vietnam War, known as the American conflict in Vietnam. Yet, there's something else to this powerful country. Did you realize Vietnam is consistently voted as the least expensive country to go in Southeast Asia, or that it's one of the world's largest coffee producers? Prior to plans to visit the country, I had no idea. Frankly, I hadn't even known about pho at that point. Try not to be like me. Let's start our education with these 18 amazing facts about Vietnam. 1. Vietnam is actually a combination of two words, Viet and Nam. While no one can put an exact date on when these words came to depict Vietnam, it's very much acknowledged that in Old Chinese, Viet was utilized to portray a gathering from outside the nation's boundaries, and Nam, intended toward the south. So in the Chinese language, Vietnam would have implied individuals toward the south. Be that as it may, in Old Vietnamese, Viet is utilized to allude to pixies and winged serpents. Researchers accept this as referring to how the Vietnamese public appeared. As indicated by legend, they are slid from dragons and fairies. Today, the two-word variation of Vietnam is utilized by Vietnamese nationals, adjoining nations, and, surprisingly, the UN. It's just in Western composing that we utilize the single word Vietnam. Two, Phan Xipang is Vietnam's tallest mountain at 3,143 meters. Phan Xipang is situated in Sapa, a region well known for its layered rice porches and vivid native gatherings. To get to the district, you can either overcome a 6-hour transport venture from Hanoi or take the substantially more agreeable short-term train. The mountain is known as the Roof of Indochina, which every once in a while can create a little turmoil as meanings of Indochina change. The most generally acknowledged alludes to Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. Great job too, since, supposing that you extended Indochina out to Thailand and Myanmar, the epithet for Phan Xipang Mountain would as of now not be valid. Myanmar has a few pinnacles above and beyond 5,000 meters. In 2016, a 6,292-meter streetcar was worked to take vacationers to the highest point of the mountain. Before this, the best way to arrive at the top was through a multi-day journey, which effectively positions as one of Southeast Asia's best trips. You can get to the Roof of Indochina quickly and easily via the cable car. 3. Vietnam is referred to as the King of Cashews. As the world's biggest exporter of cashew nuts, Vietnam creates over 55% of the worldwide stockpile and makes above and beyond $2 billion every year from the business. Cashew plants were brought to Vietnam during the 19th century and were initially filled in nurseries to give conceal. In 1990, the Vietnamese government detected the capability of cashew nut creation and put vigorously in the business. It didn't take long for this speculation to pay off, and by the mid-1990s, Vietnam was the world's biggest exporter. 4. Vietnam also takes the top spot in black pepper exports. Over 33% of the world's dark pepper comes from Vietnam, and the business has become worth billions of dollars every year. Dark pepper has been filled in Asia for quite a long time. Local to India, the flavor spread across the mainland and has been utilized in neighborhood dishes for days of yore. Nonetheless, it was only after the 1980s that Vietnam began delivering pepper on a modern scale. As of late, The Vietnamese dong has devalued in esteem fundamentally against the US dollar. However, the expenses of delivering pepper are homegrown, so unaffected by this devaluation. The net revenue for exporters has developed altogether along these lines, and the business keeps on flourishing in Vietnam. 5. Vietnam has 3,444 kilometers of coastline. As per the World Factbook, Vietnam's shoreline is the 33rd longest on the planet, accepting the estimations are right, of course. This incredible stretch of coast has to the point of keeping voyagers occupied for a really long time. Simply watch you don't invest such a lot of energy near the ocean that your visa lapses. Urban communities like Nha Trang and Da Nang are well known with travelers for their staggering seashores and incredible nightlife. The UNESCO World Legacy Site of Hoi An likewise attracts swarms because of its shocking seashores and obviously, its modest designers. The famous Halong Bay and less visited Lan Ha Bay also make up an impressive stretch of the country's northern coastline. 6. Vietnam is one of the cheapest countries in the world to get a tailor-made outfit. In the coastal city of Hoi An, you can get a bespoke suit or dress made for well under $100. Hoi An appears to be a far-fetched spot to find in excess of 500 designers. However, the business emerged when the city was a clamoring exchanging port along the Silk Course. With a lot of material being exchanged on the city's business sectors, those talented with a needle and string saw the potential chance to gain modest textures and pass those reserve funds onto their clients. The custom stretches back north of 1800 years. However, tourists enjoy just taken benefit of the modest products over the most recent few decades. 7. Vietnamese New Year is known as Tet. It's the biggest Vietnamese celebration and perhaps of the most well-known celebration in Southeast Asia. More than 90 million individuals observe Tet, which is normally hung around the same time as Chinese New Year. Be that as it may, every so often the 1-hour time distinction between the two nations implies the new moon happens on various days, and hence New Year is commended on an alternate date. Tet is celebrated by cleaning the house, reuniting with family and giving offerings to ancestors. 8. Almost every household in Vietnam has a motorcycle. There are in excess of 60 million motorbikes in the country. Not terrible when you consider the populace is around 90 million. By correlation, the UK with a populace of around 60 million has only 1 million bikes. Vietnamese intends to lessen the quantity of bicycles or totally boycott them in urban communities like Hanoi. Depend vigorously on new open vehicle frameworks being coordinated, yet apparently, that isn't going without a hitch. Because of the quantity of motorbikes and different vehicles out and about, each explorer realizes that going across the street in Vietnam can startle newbies. It's one part of culture shock that you'll have to become acclimated to pretty quick, particularly assuming you're wanting to visit one of Vietnam's significant urban communities. 9. The embalmed body of Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam's first president and prime minister, can be viewed in the Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum. The preserved embalmed body of Uncle Ho, as he is affectionately alluded to in Vietnam, is in plain view in Hanoi from January to September and is under the careful focus of outfitted monitors 24 hours every day. Ho Chi Minh is moved from Hanoi to Moscow each October, where he puts in a couple of months going through support prior to being shown off back in January. 10. Snake wine has an almost legendary status in Vietnam. It's one of the strangest gastronomic decisions in Southeast Asia. Jugs of wine with snakes curled inside, as though prepared to strike, should be visible in shops and on business sectors all through the country. Some of the time the snakes are paralyzed, destroyed, and closed back up prior to being put in the wine. This interaction must be done rapidly to guarantee the snake is as yet alive when it enters the liquor. Snake wine is remembered to further develop well-being and essentialness as well as upgrading sexual execution, albeit this isn't confirmed. 11. Vietnam is home to the world's largest cave, Hang Son Doong. Extending over 3 miles, Hang Son Doong is a natural wonder. It's sufficiently wide to fly a Boeing 747 through, and a considerable lot of the cavern's chambers are sufficiently enormous to house a whole block of New York City high-rises. In 2 or 3 places, the top of the cavern has collapsed, welcoming the wilderness into its profundities. Trees, plants, and natural life fell into the opening and have made the cavern their home. Today these trees arrive at more than 30 meters high and make an environment special to Hang Son Doong. It is said, under the right circumstances, mists could in fact shape inside the cavern framework. In the event that one knew worse, it would be not difficult to accept Jules Verne involved Hang Son Doong was the motivation for Journey to the Center of the Earth. 12. The Hon Kim turtle was one of the most endangered animals in the world. The renowned Hon Kim turtle, known as Siu Rua, extraordinary granddad turtle, made Hon Kim Lake in Hanoi its home. It was adored by Hanoians for the job it played in liberating Vietnam from the Chinese. It is said that the Hon Kim turtle was the living encapsulation of the incomparable great turtle god, Kim Ka. After the Vietnamese ruler Le Loi crushed the Chinese, utilizing a mysterious blade acquired from the divine beings, Kim Ka emerged from the lake in Pho Hanoi and requested the sword to be returned. Le Loi did as he was asked and named the lake Hon Kim Lake, Lake of the Returned Sword. 13. The Vietnam War. Known as the American conflict to the Vietnamese, this contention is the vast majority's thought process of when you notice Vietnam. It endured near 20 years and in excess of 3 million Vietnamese and 60,000 American lives were lost. As well as dropping colossal measures of combustible gadgets in Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam during the conflict, U.S. powers splashed great many gallons of herbicides on the thick Vietnamese wildernesses. This was to decrease the cover presented by the wildernesses and forestall foe powers from moving concealed through the foliage. Despite the fact that the contention finished near quite a while back, a considerable lot of the wildernesses have always avoided their pre-war state. The conflict finished in 1975 when Saigon, presently known as Ho Chi Minh City, tumbled toward the North Vietnamese powers, yet the U.S. had previously hauled their soldiers and monetary help out of the country by this point. The largest Vietnamese island, Phu Quoc, is actually closer to Cambodia than Vietnam. Just a 1-hour flight from Ho Chi Minh, Phu Quoc is making a name for itself among backpackers. Clear waters, friendly locals, and beautiful beaches draw in Vietnamese and foreign tourists year-round. 15. The Vietnamese flag is a yellow star on a red background. The star represents the 5 main classes in society: intellectuals, farmers, workers, youth, and military personnel. The red background represents blood lost during years of conflict in the country. 16. Banh mi sandwiches are king. When it comes to Southeast Asian street food, you might be used to spicy noodle dishes, fried insects and questionable meat skewers, but in Vietnam, the banh mi sandwich rules the roost. This baguette filled with meat, cheese, pickles and seasonal veg is a Vietnamese staple and one that has been filling the bellies of backpackers and locals for generations. At less than $1 for a filling sandwich, it's easy to see why banh mi are such a popular Vietnamese staple. Vietnam is home to one of the world's most impressive waterfalls. Ban Giac Waterfall is Vietnam's widest waterfall and one of the least visited natural wonders in the country. It is fed by the Quay Sun River, which marks the border between Vietnam and China. The falls have several terraces and stand over 30 meters tall. In the wet season, there's so much water cascading down the falls that the terraces completely disappear and take on the appearance of a single waterfall. Please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Also press notification bell to notify you of any future similar videos.